Here in the studio today, I have Craig Martynuck, who recently moved back to the Sault from Edmonton and has been practicing in the counseling services for 25 years.
Okay, yeah.
And Craig, your business is called Revive Psychological Services.
Correct.
Can you tell me a little bit about what services you guys offer?
Well, I'm a psychologist now and just recently moved back from Edmonton, Alberta. So as a clinic, we deal with individuals, couples, families. The main topics typically have to do with anxiety, depression, stress, family conflict, couples counseling. And recently, with the emergence of a lot of the destigmatization of mental health,
Right.
There's more people thinking it's okay to come into counseling and recognizing that trauma and other things that typically have been kept under the radar are okay to talk about now.
So you do a little bit of everything you do, from individual to couples and families.
Yes.
And what makes I saw that you guys also offer like retreats. That's a little bit unique. Can you tell me a bit more about that?
Yeah. Well, those were typically designed with first responders in mind. It was aimed at anxiety, depression, and PTSD, and recognizing that in a lot of those first responder kind of occupations, talking about mental health and making yourself vulnerable is a sensitive topic.
Right.
So offering a retreat that allowed some individual counseling, some group counseling, some adventure that goes with a lot of their personalities, and just a place to kind of unwind a lot of the continual experiences they've been through was something that was attractive, and it was short term and allowed people to not be off work for long times.
And do you go with them and run
Yes,
that?
That's one of the things. When I worked with teenagers, we used to do something called adventure-based counseling, and we used to go, and this when I was in Edmonton, up into the Rocky Mountains, and we used to have peak experiences there, and it was life-changing.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
so I thought that model fits really well with these people, and so I'm 24/7, and we organize yoga therapists and massage therapists and all the treatments that are associated with PTSD and anxiety and depression, and offer them all in one shot.
Do you ever work with veterans too?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's really where the model started to evolve, working with veterans and first responders, in the sense that a lot of their continual exposure can't be just undone overnight. And so much of it is a social component as well. So getting together with other veterans, other people who are in those professions, created a bit of a brotherhood.
Sense of community.
Absolutely. That allowed them to talk about their experiences with other people that would have experience in that.
And so you kind of mentioned, and then I told you this is something I wanted to kind of talk about, was, with the emergence of kind of destigmatizing mental health, this is something that recently, people are talking more about their mental health. Before, not so much. Throughout your career, have you found, like, in your profession, that people are coming forward more and talking about it compared to when you first started?
Yeah, it is interesting because even in the field that I work in, there is a bit of a stigma, and I've worked in trauma centers and on the crisis team and psych hospitals and young offender jails. Even the helping profession still has a bit of stigma attached to that, and as I started to recognize that, I started to deal with it head on, and I would go to management and I'd say, we need to start to help the helpers who are not being helped. And there's a new generation coming on board that understands it, and we're transitioning as a society, recognizing this is a part of everybody's life.
Right.
And so it's becoming more acceptable, and there's more people who would normally resist it are now saying, no, this is really important, I need to deal with this.
And I think, by no means am I a professional, but offering these kind of retreats that are less traditional probably helps people that wouldn't otherwise talk about it to come forward, right?
Because there is a stigma that talks about going to see a psychologist or a counselor, that I try and get over that hurdle by saying this is really an experience.
Right.
And part of that experience is very healing in the fact that it gives you an opportunity to connect individually, socially, and as well as do those things that allow a person to come back to life. And that's where I got the name Revive, come back to life.
Right. That's beautiful. And so you're back in the Sault now. Your business is up and running here in the city.
Yes.
So how can people get in touch with you to learn a little bit more, potentially book a session with you?
Yeah, well, I have a website. It's called revivepsych.ca. And on that website lists all the different things that I do, and as well as a link to the trauma program or the wilderness program, revivetrauma.ca. And that it gives the highlights of some of the areas that I deal with, and a lot of it I've come to recognize is based upon early attachment injuries.
Right.
And that's when I deal with addictions, a lot of that comes back to trauma and early attachment. And so that's one of the keys that I found in helping relief people is understanding belief systems that have got locked in place, or experiences that have got a person believing certain things about themselves and about the world that aren't productive and aren't healthy and aren't truthful. So we try and understand
Start
those.
at the roots.
Yes.
Well, that's great. So people can get in touch with you at revivepsych.ca
Yes.
or revivetrauma.ca.
Yes.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Craig, for coming in and sharing a little bit about your business with us.
No, it's my pleasure.
Great. And we will be back with more news after this.